Hello and welcome back to some climbing news. Apologies for the delay, but lots of things to cover today. We've got Domen Skofic's send of move, a look into the IFSC Bouldering World Cup that was held over the weekend in Salt Lake City, an incredibly sad and disappointing decision from the United States Supreme Court on the Arizona Oak Flat situation. It's actually the reason why I decided not to publish yesterday. I was waiting on some updates and more. So as always, don't forget to like, subscribe if you haven't already, and without further ado, let's get into it. And starting us off today with Paul Robinson, who's honestly been pretty MIA from the climbing world for the past few years. He's been battling injury after injury, but it seems like he's been making a bit of a comeback. Now, any of you who are new to the climbing world might not know who Paul Robinson actually is because, well, like I said, dude's been missing for a while, but he is nothing short of a legend, having climbed some of the hardest boulders in the world a few years back, and probably most notable of all, getting the first ascent of one of the most famous V15/8C boulder problems in the world, lucid dreaming. Now, Paul's back in the news for a sport climb FA he just did, his hardest to date, and actually, surprisingly enough, his only one to date. The proposed 514B/8C route he's called Resurrection in Staunton State Park, Colorado. Dude's been establishing boulders for years and years, like I said, lucid dreaming, top of the game in that respect. So I gotta say, it's pretty surprising to find out that this is his first sport FA. Nevertheless, pretty cool stuff from Paul. Congratulations to him, and as always, you can find links to all of his stuff in the description down below. He's got a pretty cool YouTube channel. Definitely check it out. But now let's move on to Anak Verhoeven. Now, if you don't know, Anak is one of the most prolific outdoor female climbers in the world. She's one of the few female climbers to have ever climbed 9B, and she's got 3 9A+/515A routes under her belt. Now, she's just come in the news for her latest ascent of Rain Shadow, a 9A route in Malholm Cove, England. Concretely, her 9th of the grade, which is just incredibly impressive. I mean, not much else to say about this. She apparently worked the route on and off for a few weeks before sending on her 5th red point attempt. So congratulations to Anak for her send, and yeah, as always, links are down in the description below. And actually, I'd love to know your thoughts. Who do you think is the greatest female climber in the world? And probably, why is it Lynn Hill? Let me know in the comments below. And then on to Spain, where Belen Argudo has also just gotten the first ascent of Hayalai, a route in Margalef that would constitute Anna's 3rd ever 9A/514D. Not much info on the route for the moment, only that it was originally bolted by the Poe brothers, and that apparently a lot of the work Anna put into the route has been filmed, and she has a pretty great YouTube channel. She puts a hell of a lot of work into it. So if you find you have the time, you want to check out some more, I guess you could say, like deep-ish cut climbers out there to support, links to all of her stuff are in the description down below. Go check it out. And on to Pepa, who at just 17 years old has sent his 2nd ever 9A+ route, the climb Modified, in the ultra mega famous German climbing area Frankenjura. Now, Modified is apparently a right-hand variation of the 9A route Classified, which Pepa had previously worked and sent 2 weeks prior to his send of Modified. Apparently, Pepa originally thought that Modified would be easier than 9A+, as it only really added a secondary endurance-y section, but yeah, he was wrong. You've seen that happen before, right? You see a climb, you think, whoa, jugs, and then very, very quickly you find it's not jugs, your body's being twisted into weird places it shouldn't be twisted into. You forget breathing is a thing you're supposed to do, and next thing you know, you're lightheaded, lying on the ground, and without the necessary energy in your forearms to pick up the broken pieces of the pride that fell right along with you. That's never happened to me. And it didn't really happen to Pepa either, because the dude sent in 7 goes anyways. You sandbag yourself, and yet you still send in 7 goes. What in the Lord's name are they feeding these children? Broccoli? Jesus. Anyways, well done, Pepa, 17 years old and crushing 9A+ is wild. His first one ever was done when he was 15. Links are down there in the description as always. Follow him to see his stuff. And moving on to Domen Skofic, who honestly, I gotta confess I hadn't really ever heard of him. But yeah, it just goes to show how many freaking crazy strong climbers there are out there. So Domen is a Slovenian climber who retired from comps back in 2022, and he has just gotten the 5th ascent of Move 9B in flat anger after Adamandra, Cebuan, Alex Megos, and Jorge Diaz-Rullo. Apparently, Domen had been working this thing all the way back in September 2024 with Jorge Diaz-Rullo, trading beta and, just kind of doing what climbers do when they get together in front of something hard. He unfortunately, no pun intended apparently, Jesus, he unfortunately had to leave Flatanger despite making great progress on the route. Wasn't able to return until this year, where after working the route for a while, he managed to send some 5 days ago. Now apparently Domen will be in Flatanger until the end of the week. Can't help but wonder what else he's been getting on since, and I'm honestly pretty excited to have found a new strong climber to follow. And on to the Bouldering World Cup that was held in Salt Lake City, Utah over the weekend. Let's start with the ladies. Now I'm gonna do something a little different to what I usually do, but here's a chart. We love our charts. Makes things easier, and look at that. From bottom to top, we got Futaba Ito in 8th place with a single third try top of Boulder 2. Osha McKenzie, who just managed to reach 7th place with a flash of Boulder 3's zone. Miho Nonaka, who started the round looking very good with sends of Boulders 1 and 2, and who was ultimately surpassed by Nale Menyang, who managed a second go zone of Boulder 3 and his own flash for Boulder 1. And then, one of the more wild things I've seen since I started watching these comps, 3 ladies. Zelia Avezu, Annie Sanders, and Aurélien Berton somehow managing the exact same scores. The tiebreaker at that point being the semi-final rounds, for which Zelia managed a flash of all 4 boulders, earning her a 2nd place spot. But the star of the night, of course, Mao Nakamura, who managed her first ever podium, and not only that, but gold too. Mao Nakamura had gotten incredibly close to reaching the podium, having gotten 4th place in 3 previous World Cups. So I mean, that feeling she must have had when she won, I can't even imagine. I've never competed and don't think I will ever, but it's super cool stuff to see, and super cool to see her teammates and friends hugging her. I mean, that's the sort of stuff you love to see, right? It kind of reminds me of that one photo of Brooke and Yanya from the Olympics. It's pretty freaking cool. And on to the men. I will pull up the chart again in a second. First, let's talk about Hamish MacArthur, who was competing and very nearly made the finals. He was just 1 spot away. It looks like sending V17 doesn't help with winning a World Cup, but then again, we all kind of knew that, right? Just kind of shows how mental these things really are. And I mean mental in like the normal, literal sense, not the English like, oh, it's crazy. I also mean it's crazy, but whatever. Anyway, chart. And look at that, Sorato Anraku up at the top. That's not exactly surprising, but I'll get to him in a second. First, let's talk Rei Sugimoto, who managed 8th place with only 3 zones. Yuji Fujiwaki, who was the only one other than Sorato Anraku to top boulder number 3, not half bad, landed in 7th place, followed by Mehdi Schalk, who unfortunately took a pretty hard fall. He was able to continue, but he seemed pretty rattled and only managed 6th place. I'm gonna risk a little bit of demonetization just to show you that fall, because it's kind of wild. Here it is. Yeah, that didn't look fun. Anyways, and I suppose this was kind of a comp for weird semi-injuries, as Meiichi Narasaki, who has a name kind of similar to Mehdi Schalk. Coincidence? I think not. Also seemed to have hurt one of his fingers on the first boulder. He seemed to be okay after some recovery though, and he managed to get 5th place, just like Mehdi Schalk, who was totally fine by the way. Now 4th place was all Colin Duffy, local hero who managed to get tops of boulders 1 and 2 and a flash of boulder 4's zone. And onto the podium, which was taken up by Do-Hyun Lee in bronze, Sota Amagasa for silver, and then the man of the hour, Sorato Anraku, in first. And speaking of firsts, this was Sorato Anraku's 3rd gold in a row, something only ever managed by Austria's Kilian Fischhuber. So crazy stuff, man. If he manages another podium, the guy's gonna be breaking records, which means this wasn't a first, this is actually a second. Anyway, doesn't matter. Congratulations to all the athletes. Of course, links to everything in the description below, but I'd also love to know your thoughts on the comp. Did you guys like this one? Do you think Sorato Anraku is going to be able to get 1st place in the next one? Let me know in the description down below. In the description. Let me know in the comments. Jesus, what's wrong with me? And then a little bit of a change of pace. I know this whole video was a little bit more lighthearted, but now we gotta get serious. We talk about Oak Flat. If you've been watching this channel, I've been giving updates on the unfolding situation. Basically, Oak Flat is not only one of the most important climbing areas in Arizona, but also a land that is sacred to the San Carlos Apache tribe. The Apache have been fighting the land transfer of Oak Flat to Resolution Copper, a Chinese-owned mining giant that's been planning to build what would eventually be one of the biggest copper mines in the United States on land that is sacred to them. The creation of this copper mine would mean the complete destruction of Oak Flat, making it go from a beautiful, natural, and sacred area to what pretty much amounts to a giant fucking hole in the ground, and additionally, an environmentally catastrophic one at that. Now, the US Supreme Court was set to take up an appeal by Apache Stronghold, an advocacy group that has been fighting for the conservation of Oak Flat for decades at this point, but on Tuesday, the court rejected the appeal completely, essentially deciding not to even listen to Apache Stronghold's case and to leave in place lower court decisions that allow the transfer of the Tonto National Forest land, aka Oak Flat, to Resolution Copper. And honestly, I don't know what to say. I feel angry and sad, absolutely disgusted. This isn't only one of the biggest losses the climbing community has ever faced, the destruction of literally hundreds of boulders and boulder problems. It's more importantly an impending environmental catastrophe, and even worse, the total loss of an incredibly important cultural site for a group of people who deserve to and should be allowed to worship. I mean, I don't know much about the Apache's religion, but from what little I've learned from researching this place, we're talking about a group of people who use this site as a place for coming-of-age ceremonies, where they gather sacred medicine plants, a land that is literally the birthplace of their religion. This is like the equivalent of Jerusalem for the Jewish and Christians, or like Mecca for anyone Islamic. Now, Justice Neil Gorsuch wrote in dissent that not taking this appeal was a grievous mistake. It seems he and Justice Thomas were the only two who were against the Supreme Court's decision. I'm going to put his entire statement in the comments below if you'd like to check it out, as well as the Apache Stronghold statement on the decision. At the moment, the only thing I have been able to find is a statement that they put out on their Instagram, in which the group says that they will continue to fight for Oak Flat for as long as they possibly can. This is a sentiment echoed by Wenzel Nozi, a senior of Apache Stronghold, who was quoted on Tuesday saying, "We will never stop fighting. Nothing will deter us from protecting Oak Flat from destruction." Now, as far as what can be done at this point and what will happen moving forward, the government has issued the requisite 60-day notice that states the land transfer will be taking place. I'm personally not sure what can be done to stop all of this, but I will absolutely be keeping all of you updated as things move forward. But I have to encourage you guys to at least go and check out both Apache Stronghold's website, their Instagram, and Access Fund. I'm sure they will be putting up updates on how to help. But that, of course, was some climbing news, finishing up today's episode on one of the worst pieces of news for the climbing world, but it's something hugely important that needs as many eyes on it as possible. Again, I will give updates when I can, but in the meantime, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Helps this channel out, helps me get this information out to more people who might otherwise not know about it. I will see you guys again on Friday with whatever other stuff has been going on in the climbing world throughout the week. And in the meantime, and as always, go climb some stuff.